Chronic inflammation, the silent destroyer behind chronic fatigue. Hello, dear listeners. Do you feel tired as soon as you open your eyes in the morning? Despite getting enough sleep, does your body feel heavy? And do you feel like you're walking through fog all day? Do all your medical test results come back normal, yet your body feels like it's gradually breaking down? If these symptoms sound familiar, you're standing in the middle of an invisible war that modern medicine has only recently begun to pay attention to. The protagonist of this war is a quiet but deadly enemy called chronic inflammation. When we think of inflammation, we usually think of acute inflammation, the redness and swelling when we get injured, or the fever when we're sick. But chronic inflammation has a completely different face. It's like a gas leak in your house, invisible, odorless, but slowly threatening our lives. Nobel Prize-winning experts in inflammation research say, chronic inflammation is one of the greatest health threats facing humanity in the 21st century. This is no exaggeration. Behind all the major diseases plaguing modern people, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and depression, lies chronic inflammation. From a somewhat cynical perspective, the modern society we live in is like a giant factory that promotes chronic inflammation. Cities that never sleep, an endless flood of information, tables filled with processed foods, sedentary lifestyles. All of these kindle the quiet flames of inflammation in our bodies. But there's no need to despair. If we accurately understand the nature of chronic inflammation and systematically apply scientifically proven solutions, we can definitely defeat this invisible enemy. This book aims to serve as a compass of hope. In the journey we'll explore together, we'll closely examine the structure of the maze called chronic inflammation and discover the keys to solutions that modern science has revealed one by one. Finally, we'll also look at how traditional healing methods from our ancestors, including manual therapy, wall pop, can provide new breakthroughs through modern interpretation. Chapter 1. The Invisible Battlefield, the Nature of Chronic Inflammation. When you hear the word inflammation, most people think of a swollen knee after injury or the painful memory of a sore throat from a cold. This acute inflammation is actually our body's perfect defense mechanism. Like a fire alarm, it immediately sounds when it detects danger and dispatches fire trucks to solve the problem. But chronic inflammation has a completely different nature. It's like a broken fire alarm that keeps sounding even after the fire is out. The original danger has disappeared, but the immune system continues to maintain a state of battle, eventually attacking even our body's normal tissues. Elie Metchnikoff, known as the father of immunology, made this prophecy as early as 1908. Inflammation is a double-edged sword. Used appropriately, it saves lives, but when it loses control, it threatens life. More than a century later, we're experiencing just how accurate his words were. Looking at the biochemical mechanisms of chronic inflammation, it mainly begins with the overproduction of signaling molecules called cytokines. Inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, and C-reactive proteins circulate through the bloodstream throughout the body, causing chain reactions of inflammation like a domino effect. Particularly noteworthy is the role of a transcription factor called NF-kappa B. This molecule acts as a master switch that regulates the expression of inflammation-related genes in the cell nucleus. When chronic stress, poor eating habits, sleep deprivation, and environmental toxins keep this switch in the on position, our bodies fall into an endless cycle of inflammation. From a somewhat cynical perspective, the modern medical system often focuses only on symptom relief rather than these fundamental problems. When there's a headache, painkillers are prescribed. For depression, antidepressants. For indigestion, digestive aids, while the chronic inflammation at the root of all these symptoms is overlooked. According to groundbreaking research published by Harvard Medical School's inflammation research team, chronic inflammation has a much more extensive impact than we think. In the brain, it causes depression and cognitive decline through activation of microglial cells. In blood vessels, it promotes atherosclerosis. In the intestines, it increases barrier permeability, causing so-called leaky gut syndrome. What's even more surprising is that chronic inflammation affects even our DNA. The protective structures at the ends of chromosomes called telomeres rapidly shorten due to inflammation, accelerating cellular aging. This doesn't just mean changes in appearance. It means all organs in our body lose function at a faster rate than normal. So how can we detect the presence of such chronic inflammation? Fortunately, modern medicine can measure several indicators through blood tests. C-reactive protein, CRP, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, ESR, and interleukin-6 levels are representative examples. However, normal test values don't definitively rule out chronic inflammation, as it often progresses at very subtle levels. More importantly, we need to carefully observe the signals our body sends. Unexplained chronic fatigue, recurrent infections, slow wound healing, joint stiffness, digestive problems, and mood changes can all be potential signals of chronic inflammation. Chapter 2: The Inflammation Factory, created by modern society. Humanity in the 21st century is said to be living in the most prosperous era in human history. Technological advances have made life convenient, medical progress has extended lifespan, and the information society has greatly improved access to knowledge. But here's the paradox. Despite all this progress, modern people suffer from more chronic diseases than any previous era. Anthropologists' studies of hunter-gatherer societies show that these people rarely experienced what we now call diseases of civilization. The incidence of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and depression was significantly lower. Of course, they experienced acute inflammation from infectious diseases or trauma, but chronic inflammation was virtually non-existent. So what has changed? The answer lies in the environment we live in. Modern society is literally like a giant factory that produces chronic inflammation. The first inflammation factory is the food we consume daily. Since the Industrial Revolution, humanity's diet has changed rapidly. Instead of natural foods that humans have consumed for millions of years, processed foods have become the masters of our tables. From a somewhat cynical perspective, the food industry prioritizes profit over our health. They precisely calculate the bliss point, combinations of sugar, salt, and fat, to create addictive products that keep consumers coming back. These ultra-processed foods directly trigger inflammatory responses in our bodies. Refined sugar and high fructose corn syrup cause rapid blood sugar spikes, while generating inflammatory compounds called AGEs, advanced glycation end products. Trans fats and excessive omega-6 fatty acids mass-produce inflammatory mediators like prostaglandins and leukotrienes through the arachidonic acid pathway. The second inflammation factory is modern lifestyle patterns. The invention of artificial lighting allowed us to be active 24 hours a day, but this completely disrupted our body's circadian rhythms. The destruction of circadian rhythms disturbs cortisol and melatonin secretion patterns, creating a chronic stress state. Sleep deprivation is particularly deadly. During sleep, the brain's cleaning system called the glymphatic system is activated to remove inflammatory metabolic waste. Also, during deep sleep, growth hormone is secreted to regenerate damaged tissue and readjust the immune system. However, modern people's average sleep time continues to decrease, and sleep quality is rapidly deteriorating. The third inflammation factory is chronic stress. The competitive structure of modern society Information overload, social pressure, and economic instability put us in a state of continuous stress. Stress in primitive times was mostly acute, temporary dangerous situations like encountering predators or natural disasters. But modern stress is chronic and persistent. Chronic stress continuously activates the HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, causing excessive cortisol secretion. Initially, cortisol suppresses inflammation, but chronic exposure paradoxically amplifies inflammatory responses. The fourth inflammation factory is environmental toxins. Air pollution, chemicals, endocrine disruptors from plastics, and heavy metals accumulate in our bodies, causing oxidative stress and inflammation. Fine dust particles, in particular, are inhaled through the lungs and spread throughout the body, damaging vascular endothelial cells and triggering inflammatory responses. The fifth is social isolation and loneliness. Humans are inherently social animals. However, modern society's individualistic tendencies, the spread of digital communication, and community dissolution due to urbanization are leaving many people in social isolation. Surprisingly, feelings of social isolation biologically trigger inflammatory responses similar to actual physical threats. According to research by Dr. Steve Cole at UCLA, people who feel lonely show high levels of inflammatory cytokines in their blood, while their immune response to viruses is weakened. All these modern stress factors work together, making our body's immune system play confused music like a poorly tuned orchestra. The immune system, which should protect us from external threats, has become an enemy attacking ourselves. Chapter 3: The Silent Invader Attacking the Brain. There's an old saying, when the body hurts, the mind hurts too. But modern science is proving this isn't just a proverb, it's an accurate biological fact. The impact of chronic inflammation on the brain is much more direct and serious than we imagine. Traditionally, the medical community considered the brain an immunologically privileged organ. It was thought to be protected from immune system influences by a powerful barrier called the blood-brain barrier. However, neuroimmunology research over the past 20 years has completely overturned this paradigm. The brain actually responds very sensitively to the body's inflammatory state. Inflammatory cytokines can penetrate the brain through various pathways. They can enter directly through weakened areas of the blood-brain barrier, transmit signals through the vagus nerve, or stimulate cerebral vascular endothelial cells to trigger inflammatory responses within the brain. The main players in brain inflammatory responses are microglia. These are the brain's immune cells that normally keep brain tissue clean and protect neurons. However, in chronic inflammatory states, they become overactivated and instead attack brain tissue. Activated microglia secrete inflammatory cytokines while destroying synapses, the connections between neurons. They also suppress the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, interfering with the generation of new neurons and the survival of existing ones. A representative symptom resulting from this neuroinflammation is brain fog. The head feels cloudy, as if covered in fog. Concentration decreases, and memory deteriorates. Many people think this is simply the result of stress or fatigue, but it's often a direct result of brain inflammation. More serious is the relationship between chronic inflammation and depression. Until the 1990s, depression was considered a purely psychological problem. But now it's revealed that a significant portion of depression is an inflammatory disease. According to a meta-analysis published by Harvard Medical School research team, about 30% of depression patients show significantly elevated inflammatory markers. Inflammatory cytokines interfere with the synthesis and metabolism of neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline, causing depressive symptoms. The activation of an enzyme called IDO is particularly noteworthy. When this enzyme is overactivated in inflammatory states, tryptophan, the precursor to serotonin, is converted to a neurotoxic substance called kynurenine instead of serotonin. This can lead not only to depression, but also to anxiety and cognitive decline. From a somewhat cynical perspective, modern psychiatry still often views depression as a simple chemical imbalance and relies only on antidepressant prescriptions. But if the root cause of depression lies in chronic inflammation, antidepressants alone have limitations. One reason many patients don't achieve satisfactory results despite trying various antidepressants may lie here. Chronic inflammation is also an important risk factor for neurodegenerative diseases. Evidence continues to accumulate that chronic inflammation plays a key role in the development of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and multiple sclerosis. In Alzheimer's disease, activated microglia are always found around amyloid plaques and tau protein tangles discovered in the brain. Initially, they attempt to remove toxic proteins, but in chronic inflammatory states, they create a vicious cycle that further damages brain tissue. The relationship between sleep and brain inflammation is also very important. The glymphatic system mentioned earlier is only activated during sleep to remove inflammatory metabolic waste from the brain. Sleep deprivation or poor sleep quality reduces the efficiency of this cleaning system, allowing inflammatory substances to accumulate in the brain. Sleep deprivation also increases blood-brain barrier permeability, allowing inflammatory molecules that normally couldn't enter the brain to infiltrate brain tissue. This creates a vicious cycle that further worsens brain inflammation. Interestingly, exercise has positive effects on brain inflammation. Appropriate aerobic exercise increases BDNF secretion and promotes the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines. Additionally, a hormone called irisin, secreted through exercise, is known to suppress microglial activation. Ultimately, protecting brain health requires more than just brain training or cognitive stimulation. Managing the entire body's inflammatory state is key to brain health. Chapter 4. Reading your body's warning signals. Our body has an amazingly sophisticated communication system. Like a skilled doctor, the body constantly checks its condition and sends various signals whenever something is wrong. The problem is that modern people often fail to properly read these signals or simply ignore them. The early signals of chronic inflammation are usually very subtle and non-specific. This is like when a car engine has problems. It starts with small noises or vibrations. If these early signals are ignored, the engine eventually breaks down completely. Similarly, chronic inflammation starts with mild symptoms and gradually develops into serious diseases. The most common early signal is unexplained chronic fatigue. You have difficulty getting up in the morning despite getting enough sleep, and you feel lacking in energy all day. This isn't simple physical weakness. It's because inflammatory cytokines impair mitochondrial function, reducing energy production at the cellular level. Mitochondria are called the powerhouses of cells. When they don't function properly, all our body's functions decline. In inflammatory states, excessive free radicals are generated, damaging mitochondrial DNA and reducing energy production efficiency. The second major signal is changes in cognitive function. Decreased concentration, memory decline, and loss of mental clarity appear. Many people accept this as a natural phenomenon of aging, but it's likely the result of brain inflammation. From a somewhat cynical perspective, modern society makes us accept this cognitive decline as if it were normal. It's natural for concentration to decrease in this multitasking era, or it's normal for memory to worsen with age. But this is far from normal. The third signal is changes in mood and emotions. Unexplained depression, anxiety, and frequent irritability fall into this category. As explained earlier, This is a phenomenon that occurs when inflammation disrupts neurotransmitter balance. The fourth is changes in sleep patterns. Difficulty falling asleep, frequent awakening, or inability to sleep deeply. Inflammatory cytokines directly affect brain areas that regulate sleep-wake cycles, deteriorating sleep quality. The fifth is digestive system problems. Persistent abdominal bloating, gas, diarrhea or constipation, and heartburn. The intestines are where over 70% of our body's immune cells are concentrated. Chronic inflammation increases intestinal mucosa permeability, causing so-called leaky gut syndrome, which creates a vicious cycle that amplifies systemic inflammatory responses. The sixth is joint and muscle discomfort. Joint stiffness upon waking in the morning, or persistent unexplained muscle pain. Inflammatory cytokines can directly stimulate joint capsules and muscle tissues, causing pain and stiffness. The seventh is skin changes. Acne, eczema, psoriasis, and worsening skin troubles can appear. The skin is our body's largest organ, and the immune system's first line of defense. Internal inflammatory states are often expressed as skin problems. The eighth is decreased resistance to infection, frequently catching colds, slow wound healing, or frequent mouth ulcers. Chronic inflammation disrupts immune system balance, actually weakening resistance to real pathogens. The ninth consists of symptoms related to hormonal imbalance. Women may experience menstrual irregularities, worsened PMS, or intensified menopausal symptoms, while men may experience decreased libido or muscle loss. Inflammation directly affects hormone production and metabolism. Finally, noteworthy signals include changes in appetite and weight, increased craving for sugar or carbohydrates, or unexplained weight gain or loss. Inflammation interferes with appetite-regulating hormones like leptin and ghrelin, making appetite and weight control difficult. Recognizing these signals is already taking the first step toward healing. If we can listen to our body's voice and accurately interpret its messages, we can respond before chronic inflammation develops into serious diseases. What's important is to suspect the possibility of chronic inflammation behind these symptoms when they appear in combination. Rather than trying to treat each symptom separately, finding and resolving the fundamental cause of inflammation would be a more effective approach. Chapter 5: Poison and Medicine on the Dining Table. Hippocrates' words, "Diseases that cannot be cured by food cannot be cured by medicine," remain valid 2,500 years later. However, looking at modern dining tables, we realize how much these words are being ignored. Many of the foods we consume daily actually act like poison that promotes chronic inflammation. The human digestive system is the product of long evolutionary processes. Our genes are optimized for natural foods. However, over the past 200 years, especially the last 50 years, the human diet has changed rapidly. From an evolutionary perspective, this is an extremely short moment, but it was a tremendous shock to our bodies. Emulsifiers in particular thin the mucus layer of the intestinal mucosa, increasing barrier permeability. This allows toxins or incompletely digested substances that normally shouldn't be absorbed in the intestines to enter the bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammatory responses. The sugar problem is even more serious. Modern people consume an average of over 100 grams of sugar per day. This is equivalent to eating in one day what our ancestors consumed in a year. Rapid sugar intake causes blood sugar spikes, massively generating inflammatory compounds called ages in the body. Ages are like browning reactions occurring inside the body. Just as bread surfaces turn brown when baked, proteins in our body combine with sugar and become denatured. These denatured proteins are recognized as enemies by the immune system, causing inflammatory responses. Trans fats, are another culprit of inflammation. Trans fats found in margarine, shortening, and processed foods made with them are artificial fats, not naturally produced in our bodies. They change cell membrane structure and promote the production of inflammatory prostaglandins. The imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids also greatly affects modern people's chronic inflammation. The ideal ratio is about 4:1, but in modern diets, it's skewed to 20:1 or higher. Excessive omega-6 fatty acids lead to overproduction of inflammatory mediators through arachidonic acid. So what foods reduce inflammation? The Mediterranean diet provides a good model. The core of this diet is focusing on unprocessed natural foods. The first group of anti-inflammatory foods consists of foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids. This includes fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, as well as flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. These provide powerful anti-inflammatory compounds, EPA and DHA. The second group consists of foods rich in polyphenols. Berries, dark chocolate, green tea, red grapes, and olive oil belong here. Polyphenols block inflammatory responses through powerful antioxidant action and by suppressing the NF-kappa B pathway. The third is spices. Curcumin in turmeric, gingerol in ginger, allicin in garlic, and cinnamaldehyde in cinnamon all have powerful anti-inflammatory effects. Curcumin, in particular, is known to be stronger than some anti-inflammatory drugs. The fourth consists of foods rich in dietary fiber. Dietary fiber found in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and legumes becomes food for beneficial intestinal bacteria, generating short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids have powerful anti-inflammatory effects. What's important isn't simply eating more good foods, but reducing bad foods. Reducing the proportion of processed foods in the diet and increasing the proportion of natural foods. This is the first key to victory in the war against inflammation. Chapter 6. Chronic poison called stress. In modern society, stress has become like air. Everyone is stressed, and a life without stress has become unimaginable. However, not many people know exactly what this chronic stress does in our bodies. Stress goes beyond simple psychological discomfort. It's a powerful biological toxin that puts our entire body in an inflammatory state. To understand the biological mechanisms of stress, we must first understand the HPA axis. This is our body's main response system to stress. When stress is detected, the hypothalamus secretes CRH, which stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete ACTH, ultimately causing the adrenal glands to secrete cortisol. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone. In the short term, it's an important hormone that helps us cope with crisis situations. It raises blood sugar, increases heart rate, and suppresses immune responses, so all energy can be focused on crisis management. But the problem is that modern people's stress is chronic. Stress in primitive times was mostly acute, temporary dangerous situations like encountering predators or natural disasters. The system that evolved to respond to such acute stress isn't suitable for modern chronic stress. Chronically high cortisol levels paradoxically increase inflammation. Initially, cortisol suppresses inflammation, but prolonged exposure creates cellular resistance to cortisol. This is similar to insulin resistance in diabetes. Groundbreaking research by Professor Sheldon Cohen at Carnegie Mellon University showed how chronic stress changes immune system function. Immune cells in people under chronic stress couldn't properly recognize cortisol's anti-inflammatory signals, resulting in excessive and prolonged inflammatory responses. From a somewhat cynical perspective, modern society often packages stress as if it were a symbol of success. Being busy is seen as evidence of being important, and not experiencing stress is sometimes treated as being lazy or lacking ambition. However, This social perception normalizes chronic stress and ultimately causes collective health problems. The inflammatory effects of chronic stress appear through various pathways. First, overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system causes excessive noradrenaline secretion. This causes vasoconstriction, raises blood pressure, and damages vascular endothelial cells, promoting atherosclerosis. Chronic stress also changes the composition of gut microbiota. Stress hormones suppress the growth of beneficial bacteria and promote the proliferation of harmful bacteria. This imbalanced gut microbiota generates inflammatory compounds that worsen systemic inflammation. The impact on sleep cannot be overlooked. Cortisol should normally be high in the morning and low in the evening, but in chronic stress states, this circadian rhythm is disrupted. High cortisol levels maintained late into the night suppress melatonin secretion, resulting in deteriorated sleep quality. Not only psychological stress, but also social stress is an important inflammatory factor. According to research by Dr. Steve Cole at UCLA, people with low social status or lacking social support show changes in gene expression patterns. Specifically, expression of inflammation-related genes increases, while expression of genes related to immune responses against viruses decreases. This can be explained by the concept of social pain. Social exclusion or rejection activates the same brain areas as actual physical pain. From an evolutionary perspective, being excluded from social groups was a deadly threat to survival. So our brains evolved to perceive social pain as equivalent to actual physical danger. The competitive structure of modern society, constant comparison through social media, economic instability, and workplace conflicts all create chronic social stress. These stresses put our bodies in a continuous, battle-ready state, causing the immune system to become overactivated. Stress cannot be completely avoided in modern life. However, if we learn to have a healthy relationship with stress, we can prevent stress from becoming a cause of chronic inflammation. Chapter 7. The Science of Sleep and Recovery. Sleep is a mysterious time that occupies 1/3 of our lives. For a long time, sleep was considered merely a time of rest. But advances in modern sleep science are revealing that sleep is our body's most important time for healing and recovery. Particularly from the perspective of chronic inflammation, quality sleep can be called a more powerful anti-inflammatory treatment than any medication. Truly amazing things happen in our bodies during sleep. Just as cities are cleaned and repaired overnight, our bodies also repair the damage accumulated throughout the day and remove toxins while we sleep. Growth hormone plays a key role in this process. This hormone doesn't simply make us grow taller, it regenerates damaged tissue, recovers muscles, and strengthens the immune system. Growth hormone also has direct anti-inflammatory effects, neutralizing inflammatory cytokines generated during the day. The importance of circadian rhythms revealed by the 2017 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine research cannot be overlooked. Almost every cell in our body has a built-in 24-hour biological clock that precisely regulates hormone secretion, body temperature control, and immune responses. When this rhythm is disrupted, inflammatory responses are also disturbed. When this system doesn't function properly, toxic substances accumulate in the brain, increasing the risk of dementia. Indeed, Alzheimer's patients show significantly impaired glymphatic system function in their brains. The relationship between sleep and the immune system is also very close. Major immune cells like T cells, B cells, and NK cells are optimized during sleep. Particularly during deep sleep, immune memory is strengthened, enabling more effective responses to previously encountered pathogens. Looking at indicators for evaluating sleep quality, it's not just the duration that matters. Sleep efficiency, the proportion of deep sleep, the proportion of REM sleep, and the number of times you wake up during the night are all important. The most common sleep problem modern people experience is sleep onset disorder, difficulty falling asleep even when lying in bed. This is usually due to excessive arousal states, namely overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system. Stress, caffeine, lack of exercise, and irregular lifestyle patterns all create this hyperarousal state. The second common problem is sleep maintenance disorder, falling asleep but frequently waking up, or waking up too early in the morning. This is often due to abnormal cortisol rhythms or the influence of inflammatory cytokines. The third is non-restorative sleep, continuing to feel tired and not refreshed despite getting enough sleep. This may be due to lack of deep sleep or sleep disorders like sleep apnea. Chapter 8. The delicate balance of exercise and immunity. The relationship between exercise and health is like the relationship between drug dosage and effect. The right amount becomes medicine, but excess can become poison. Particularly in the context of chronic inflammation, exercise is the most powerful natural treatment for reducing inflammation, while simultaneously being a double-edged sword that can worsen inflammation if done incorrectly. Accumulation of visceral fat is also an important problem. When physical activity is insufficient, energy consumption decreases and excess calories accumulate as visceral fat. Visceral fat itself is an endocrine organ that secretes inflammatory cytokines. Conversely, appropriate exercise has powerful anti-inflammatory effects. Exercise's anti-inflammatory mechanisms work at multiple levels. During exercise, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, secreting anti-inflammatory catecholamines. These suppress inflammatory responses in immune cells. Myokines secreted by muscles also play important roles. Irisin promotes brown fat formation to improve metabolism. FGF21 improves insulin sensitivity, and osteocalcin regulates bone and glucose metabolism. All these myokines directly or indirectly suppress inflammation. The increase in BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is also noteworthy. Exercise promotes BDNF secretion, helping neuron survival and growth while simultaneously suppressing brain inflammation. This is one reason exercise is effective for treating depression. Exercise is one of the most powerful weapons in the war against chronic inflammation. However, to use this weapon properly, we must find the appropriate intensity, frequency, and type. As the saying goes, moderation is most important. Hwelbiop identifies 4 fundamental causes of chronic inflammation. First, the weakening of liver and kidney function. The liver serves as our body's detoxification factory, while the kidneys act as filters that remove waste products. When these 2 organs fail to function properly, toxins and waste accumulate within the body. Second is the blockage of meridians. Meridians are pathways through which qi and blood flow. When these become blocked, energy cannot circulate smoothly. It's like traffic congestion on roads. When one area gets blocked, everything backs up. Third is the weakness of Jongi, vital energy. Jongi is the fundamental energy that maintains our body's normal functions. When this is insufficient, our ability to resist external negative influences weakens. Fourth is stress, which modern people experience most frequently. Persistent stress keeps the sympathetic nervous system in constant tension, disrupting the body's balance. So how does Hwelbiop solve these problems? Hwelbiop has 4 core therapeutic principles. First is the resolution of knots, Guyol. Our body has 8 specific points where QI and blood become stagnant. These are called Guyol or knots, acting like dams in a river. Hwelbiop practitioners use skilled hands to precisely locate these points and gently release them. Through palpation and diagnosis, they identify the location and severity of each person's unique knots, providing personalized treatment. Like removing debris from blocked pipes, This process allows energy to flow again. Second is meridian communication therapy. Meridians consist of 14 major pathways crossing our body and countless branch channels. When these pathways become blocked, inflammatory signals spread throughout the body. Hwalbiop uses special manual techniques to open these meridians one by one. This is like clearing blocked roads. When one area opens up, other areas flow smoothly in a chain reaction. Third is yin-yang harmony therapy to balance the body. In chronic inflammatory states, yang qi is usually excessively elevated. Stress and inflammation cause excessive heat in the body, while yin qi becomes weakened. Hwalbiop uses special techniques to restore this balance. Excessive yang qi is brought down, and insufficient yin qi is replenished. This restores autonomic nervous system balance and normalizes hormone secretion. Fourth is 5 organs and 6 bowels regulation therapy. Hwalbiop believes that the 5 organs, liver, kidneys, spleen, stomach, lungs, heart, and their connected bowels must all work harmoniously. Strengthening liver function improves detoxification ability, and strengthening kidneys promotes smooth waste elimination. Strengthening the spleen stomach improves digestion and absorption, generating vitality, and healthy lungs deepen breathing for smooth oxygen supply. When all these work together, immunity naturally increases, and the ability to eliminate inflammatory toxins improves. When we examine people suffering from chronic inflammation, most experience multiple symptoms simultaneously. Chronic fatigue, depression, and muscle pain often appear together. All these symptoms are actually deeply interconnected. For example, when spleen-stomach function weakens, digestive power decreases first. Poor digestion leads to reduced nutrient absorption, which directly causes Jonghi deficiency. When Jonghi is insufficient, fatigue spreads throughout the body. Simultaneously, liver qi begins to stagnate. As stress and fatigue accumulate, the liver's energy becomes blocked, manifesting as emotional instability. When liver qi stagnation becomes severe, heart qi also weakens, causing depression and insomnia. Poor sleep further reduces the body's recovery ability, starting a vicious cycle. Also, congealed qi and blood accumulate in muscles. These are muscle knots that cause inflammatory pain. This is why the neck and shoulders are always stiff, and the back frequently aches. Hwalbiop treatment approaches all these problems holistically. First, we examine the abdomen. The abdomen is our body's center and energy storage. Here, we assess the spleen-stomach condition and begin work to restore digestive function. Next, we examine the chest area. Between the chest and ribs and around the shoulder blades are important knots related to cardiopulmonary function. Modern people have significant blockages in these areas due to stress and poor posture. When we release tension in these areas with gentle manual techniques, breathing deepens and mind-body stability is achieved. The spinal area is also crucial. The Dokmak, governing vessel, and bladder meridian flowing along the spine play key roles in whole-body energy circulation. Resolving knots around the spine stabilizes the nervous system and restores autonomic nervous balance. Along with this, we practice Danjon breathing and Qigong. Danjon breathing is not a simple breathing technique, but a process of recharging energy. Through deep, even breathing, we gather energy in the lower dantian and circulate it throughout the body. Qigong harmonizes body movement, breathing, and intention to make qi and blood flow even more smoothly. The core philosophy of Hwalbiop is this: when qi and blood flow is restored, inflammation naturally disappears. This is not simply suppressing symptoms, but reviving the natural healing power our body originally possessed. Hwalbiop is not about simply suppressing chronic inflammation, but rather a holistic therapy that restores our body's natural healing power. Just as clearing a blocked river naturally allows clean water to flow, when qi and blood circulation becomes smooth, the body naturally finds its balance. While modern medicine's development has enabled treatment of many diseases, there are still limitations for chronic problems. In this situation, Walbiop wisdom passed down for thousands of years presents new possibilities. Walbiop's approach of viewing body and mind as one and addressing root causes rather than symptoms shows modern people an essential path to healing. Your body also has a strong inherent desire to become healthy. The path is simply blocked. Walbiop serves as a compass to reopen that path. Don't be impatient. Listen carefully to the signals your body sends and steadily work toward reclaiming your health. Chapter 9. An integrated approach for a new beginning. We've now almost reached the exit of the maze called chronic inflammation. Through our journey so far, we've realized that chronic inflammation isn't simply a medical problem, but a complex challenge created by modern civilization. The solution to this problem also requires multifaceted integrated strategies rather than a single approach. The development of modern medicine has certainly brought great benefits to humanity. Conquering infectious diseases, advancing surgical techniques, and building emergency medical systems have saved our lives and improved quality of life. However, the limitations of existing medical paradigms are sometimes revealed when facing complex health problems like chronic inflammation. What we need here is a new integrated paradigm. We need comprehensive solutions that combine modern medicine's precise diagnosis and cutting-edge treatments with traditional medicine's holistic approaches, adding individual lifestyle improvements and social environmental changes. The core of this integrated approach is establishing a personalized inflammation management plan. We must comprehensively evaluate each person's genetic predisposition, living environment, stress factors, dietary habits, and exercise capacity to find the most suitable strategy. For example, for an office worker in their 30s who works long hours at a desk job, musculoskeletal problems from sedentary lifestyle, digestive problems from irregular meals, and sleep disorders from work stress may work together to cause chronic inflammation. What's needed isn't simply taking anti-inflammatory drugs, but comprehensive management, including work environment improvement, diet control, stress management, regular exercise, and sleep hygiene. For middle-aged people in their 50s, hormonal changes, muscle mass decline, and metabolic slowdown may be major inflammatory factors. In this case, hormonal balance recovery, strength training, anti-inflammatory diet, and increased social activities would be important strategies. What's important in this personalized approach is recognizing the cumulative effect of small changes. Trying to change everything overnight can actually become stressful and worsen inflammation. Instead, making one small change each week and gradually improving is a sustainable method. From a somewhat cynical perspective, the health management field is overflowing with numerous miracle cures. There are many exaggerated claims that all inflammation disappears in just a few days, or that eating just one specific supplement makes you healthy. However, since chronic inflammation is a problem accumulated over a long period, the solution must also be approached from a long-term perspective. We need the wisdom to maintain healthy skepticism while selecting and applying methods with scientific evidence. Rather than following trends, consistently practicing verified basic principles is more effective. We must also acknowledge that individual efforts alone have limitations. Chronic inflammation is both a personal and social problem. Environmental pollution, food system problems, and social stress structures are not areas that individuals can solve alone. Therefore, social change is needed along with individual efforts. Improving access to healthy foods, improving work environments, improving social systems to reduce stress, and environmental protection are all important elements for solving chronic inflammation. Ultimately, the key to victory in the war against chronic inflammation lies in balance. The balance between modern and traditional medicine, the balance between individual effort and social support, the balance between technological solutions and human contact, and the balance between perfectionism and acceptance are all important. Your body has amazing healing abilities. Given the right conditions, tissues damaged by inflammation can recover. Creating those conditions is your role. The Bible says, "I will bless you and make you prosper, and I will heal your body and make you healthy." Exodus 15:26. The body God gave us has the ability to heal and recover itself. We just need to believe in that ability and help it function properly. The war against chronic inflammation is a marathon. It's not a sprint that ends quickly, but a long journey that must be completed at a steady pace. But at the end, a healthy and vibrant life will surely be waiting. I sincerely hope that all of you will be victorious in this journey. I hope you can fully enjoy the precious life God has given you with a healthy body and mind. I sincerely thank all of you who have listened to this audiobook for a long time. Though it was time spent exploring the difficult topic of chronic inflammation together, I hope it has been somewhat helpful for your healthy lives. If you want more health information and practical advice, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your subscriptions, likes, and precious comments are great encouragement for creating better content. I sincerely wish for all your health and happiness, and I'll return with even better content next time. Thank you.